I can leave, but you call me in and say, I'm glad you're here.
All right. Good evening. So we're now recording for Channel 18, and the voice you hear, the disembodied voice you hear, is that of Joe Powers, Town Administrator. And I'm here to assist these folks assembled, which is the first meeting of Harwich's local planning committee, affectionately referred to as the LPC. And the LPC is going to work on the LCP, which is Local Comprehensive Plan. So good evening, everybody, and thank you. Your meeting is not officially called to order yet, so what you have to first do is you folks are going to have to organize. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, a 10th member on the phone, and an 11th member who has not arrived yet. My purpose right now is to walk you through that process procedurally under parliamentary procedures. And then once you do that, we can get into the discussions of who you are, what you're going to do, and next steps. So when you look at your agenda, we're actually going to go down to organization of the committee first. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to read names as I am aware that the Board of Selectmen have appointed. And so I'm going to go in the order in which they were listed, because that was the order in which the board voted. James Nickman.
I'm Jim.
And you go by Jim. Thank you, Jim. Jim, I'm going to come back to you in a minute because parliamentary procedure dictates something that you're going to have to do. So I'm going to leave that to be suspenseful for a moment. Thank you, Jim. Bernadette Waystack. Good evening, Bernadette. Nice to see you. Garrett Curran.
Right here.
Garrett. And did I say the last name right?
That's right. Yep.
Thank you, Garrett. Nice to see you and meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
We've got Margot Fenn joining us by phone call. Good evening, Margot.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be here in person.
Better than nothing. Peter Gorey. Peter, good evening.
All right.
Joyce McIntyre.
Hello.
Good evening, Joyce. Barbara Nickerson. All right, see, deductive reasoning here. All right, now it gets more difficult. Brian Sheld.
Here.
And Brian, did I say that right?
You did.
All right, wonderful. And then mercifully, I know David Spitz and I know Jeff Handler. And the one other person that's missing is Ed McManus, so he is the 11th member. What I would recommend, your next steps is that in accordance with parliamentary procedure and specifically Robert's Rules of Order, the one time we want to invoke it is a moment like this when we have a brand new committee that has been created and needs to first organize. And so under the town of Harwich's charter, you should elect a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. Now, I want to make it very clear, I am not a member of this public body, and I am not presently presiding over this public body. I'm just saying a lot of things before you vote. Folks, go ahead and do all that. Now, I mentioned to Jim Nickman that Jim's going to have a role to play. Under Robert's Rules of Order, unless there is a chair pro tem designated by the board when they voted, which there is not, the first person listed is the one to preside over the organization. So, Jim, have you done that before?
I have.
All right, beautiful. I stand ready to assist in any way, shape, or form. But as the chairman pro tem, in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, I would say that you should call this meeting to order.
I would like to call this meeting to order.
And so we're going to note that it's 5:09 p.m. and eventually your clerk of this committee is going to make more notes on that. Just keep that in mind, folks. So, Mr. Chair Pro Tem, if I could advise the committee through you. So you want to have somebody named as the chair. The chair is the presiding officer of this public body and the first among equals. He or she bears the burden of developing the agendas in concert with the members of the committee and being generally responsible to make sure that this herd of cats is so-called corralled and moves forward. The vice chair is the person who stands second in command and stands in place of the chair if he or she is not available. And then wait for it, because everyone thinks they don't want to be chair. But then you have the position of clerk, and that's the toughest one, because the clerk in the town of Harwich would be the one responsible for making sure that the agendas get posted, and there is a process through the town clerk's office and administration. Make sure that you keep track of the minutes and the discussion items and the materials. And so those are the three positions that you need to organize this evening. So with that, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, I turn it back over to you. And you may want to ask for nominations for any or all, however you folks want to do it. And even though you're Chair Pro Tem, you are not prohibited from nominating nor being nominated.
Not.
Correct.
Good.
You're all fair game. And you could also, the member in absentia, if you wanted to, you could make him have a role.
Could we ask you, or could I ask?
You can ask me
two
any questions you like.
So, are there no town officials on the committee? It's just this group, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem. If I may, very quickly to that question. As you folks would recall, you responded to an ad where the town, through the Board of Selectmen, were looking for members from the community at large. And so it is purposeful that all of you folks are here and folks like me aren't. This was meant to be a committee derived from the community. And again, your primary charge is to help the town develop the local comprehensive plan. So I can get into more of that under your purpose of the committee and next steps after you organize, but that's the quick answer.
And it will be our decision how often we meet and how we meet within the rules of the.
You're absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem. Yep.
Okay. And there is not a director of planning in place right now.
So you noticed that, correct. There is no presently a director of planning and community development. However, we continue to search for one, and I would look to you folks to help me find one. The market is incredibly tight right now. We've had a few potential candidates, but no success yet. However, you are correct. The director of planning and community development will be a primary staff resource as you folks work through this process. Additionally, a predecessor planner, Charlene Greenhalgh, had the great sense to set aside some money so the town has money available for us, the local planning committee. Did I already get it wrong? Nope, local planning committee, to work through the administration department to do a request for proposals to hire a consultant. So that's one of the first things you folks will do is we'll work together for you folks to devise what you think the consultant should do, and then administration does the work of advertising, choosing in concert and discussion with you folks for advice and information, and then your consultant works for you as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so that takes the place of the planning person.
Well, it's meant to be in addition to.
Oh, it would have been there anyway, even without the planning.
Correct.
I see.
Are you open for who I ask questions?
Well, you can ask questions to whoever you want, and then.
Well, I'm just wondering, with regard to the process, is there a table of contents? Is there what's the scope of?
So all of that will be answered. The best thing you can do right now is organize.
That's afterwards.
Exactly. Yep.
So I have a question for you, and I don't know if Joe will let us do this, but I know none of you, and I think it would be real nice for people to introduce themselves.
Surely before we elect people, we should know each other. I agree.
And speaking for Joe, I have no objection.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Well, before we start, just nitpicky a little bit, but the agenda calls for the new business, which is to discuss the purpose and then to organize. So we're flip-flopping those at your recommendation, right?
Correct. You want to have a presiding officer. Now, having said that, if everybody's comfortable with your chair pro tem, we can go through the agenda any way you want.
The reason I would ask is we might, through the introductions, and that's a great suggestion, and the discussion of what the purpose is, and some other perhaps suggestions we might have, identify people that we might want to nominate, right?
The only other thing I would ask, though, is if one of you could be listening for the purposes of perhaps recording some things, and that is to say if there's key points you want to remember for minutes and things like that. But it's entirely appropriate if you folks are willing to work through Jim as your chair pro tem. I can certainly go more in depth on the purpose of your committee and your next steps.
And introductions, right?
I, for one, think that would be a really
I
good
agree.
way to go.
I agree.
Jim, it sounds like they want you to go around the table for introductions.
Do you think we should do the introductions first and then do the discussion?
I think introductions
Yeah.
first would be good.
Think just
Okay,
introductions, general background, where people come from, type stuff.
Brian, you have to start.
I'm happy to volunteer to take some notes.
Oh, perfect.
I'll start there.
Clerk.
I am not volunteering to be clerk.
I was just saying, I probably should get some 10 cards for future meetings.
Yep.
Brian Sheld, I live in East Harwich, permanent resident since June of 2016. Career, I'm a retired executive from IBM, where I led our strategy practice and business analytics with financial services companies, mostly Fortune 100, but I failed at my first attempt at retirement, and I got drawn back into work. And the last 5 years, I've worked doing business intelligence analytics with pharma R&D, GSK, and AbbVie. So I retired for the second time last September, and I'm really trying hard to stick to it.
This will help.
I think it will. This will fill in a few
This
gaps.
will fill in some time.
Anything else that we want to know about each other?
That's a good start.
I'm Joyce McIntyre, like some of you. I am a Harwich native, Rough Rider, class of '98, high school. Live in West Harwich. I'm a first grader in the elementary school. My son Francis. Professionally, I'm a surgeon. I'm a plastic surgeon. I split my time professionally between Cape Cod Hospital and our office here in Dennis. I'm on the faculty of medical school at UMass in Worcester, so I'm back and forth to Worcester. I really take care of kids. I do a lot of reconstructive surgery with congenital anomalies with children. Harwich is near and dear to my heart. Obviously, living here, I'm a child of the school system and a product of the town. So happy to be here with you all.
I'm Bernadette Waystack. I can show you some of her work.
Looks great.
No, it's not. No, I've lived here 36 years. My husband Richard and I work in the community, raised our kids here. We are blessed to now have grandchildren here. Our daughter married a guy from Bass River, so we're all right here in town. I am retiring for the first time. Yeah. I've been teaching at Monomoy High School for the last 8 years and at Harwich Middle School for 20 before that. In addition to that, I am a practicing artist with a studio at the 204. And I'm also vice chair of the Board of Library Trustees and chair of the Harwich Cultural Council.
Before you folks go any further, I move the camera for a moment so that you at least can get on Channel 18 once. But if you just want to say who you are and wave, and we'll make sure we get everybody, you will be upgraded after this meeting to a better room.
Sure. Brian Shelton, I should also do full disclosure. I'm also the chair of the Harwich Fund, which we formed 2 years ago. And it's been quite successful supporting nonprofits throughout the community. And even though I moved here in 2016, my mother-in-law bought a house in 1980, so we really had very strong affinity. I know, but
We're all still
Nice try.
I'll keep on trying.
Backing into it.
Your street cred. I'm Joyce McIntyre for the camera.
Bernadette Waystack for the camera.
Okay, my turn. I'm David Spitz. I may not look like it, but I have something in connection with Joyce, in that I have a first grader at the Harwich Elementary School.
Oh, nice.
I'm in the one in a million. That's how many of us are grandparents raising kids in this country. So it does expose me to a different part of the community than I would otherwise have. I'm not as, in my retirement, which is now 5 or 6 years old, I'm attempting to do what you already do, which is do art stuff, but I'm just having fun with it in retirement. Now, the thing I'm also the chair of the Brooks Museum Commission, trying to spend $1 million of the town's money in very short order to put a new foundation under that building. I think the main thing I need to disclose is I used to be the town planner here, as some of you know.
That's right.
So I know an awful lot about this stuff, which is both a good resource and which is why you would never want me to be a chair of this committee. I've got a lot of baggage as well, which at least one or two of you could describe.
So we see what you did there.
So I think I'll stop there.
Well done.
Thank you.
Where in Harwich do you live?
Oh, Harwich Port.
I'm curious.
George's Pizza turnaround driveway. Three houses up.
Oh,
I've backed in there once or twice. My bad.
I've never done that.
I've never blocked it.
Peter Gorey, typically go by Pete, graduated Harwich High School in 1993. Third generation, year-round resident. My grandmother lived on Stone Road for 47 years. and I just recently moved back. My fiance and I bought a home on Sisson Road, so I'm right here in the center. My background is actually in urban planning. I worked for the city of Boston for a decade in the Boston Redevelopment Authority, which is the planning and economic development agency for the city. And I'm a commercial real estate broker. I split my time between the Cape and Boston, though my fiance is here full time. I'm hoping to migrate my business down here full time.
Garrett Curran. I'm also in information technology, data analytics, pervasive analytics, all the fun buzzwords everyone's talking about now. I am not the smart guy. I can't fix your computer, but I can bring the smart people. I work mainly remote. I live here all year. My wife is an ER physician at Cape Cod Healthcare. I've got 2 kids under 2 and a puppy I got on Father's Day. So sleep is very limited in my household, but I'm happy to be here. I've been working in IT for about 13 years now.
And where are you?
I'm right on Bank Street in Harwich Port. So right where Freeman and Bank split, I'm right on a cranberry bog.
I'm Jim Nickman. I purchased a house here in 1978, which was a house built in 1750 on Nantucket and floated over. So I've been coming to the Cape for many years. I retired 2 years ago, and we've been living on the Cape since then and enjoying it a lot. It looks very different when you're here as a resident as opposed to a summer person. Both experiences are good. I'm trained in economics. I spent a good deal of my career at New York University, sort of an expert in public policy and aging. I've done a lot of research on long-term care issues and just sort of a lot of issues on how we afford an aging population in our country. And the other half of my career I spent working at foundations. I was the president of the New York Health Foundation, a bigger foundation than yours. And then I was You Aspire, and I was also head of research at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, a very large healthcare-oriented foundation in Princeton, New Jersey. Right now, I'm president. I don't know what it means to be president of the Friends of the Harwich Council on Aging, and involved in a number of other activities around town. One of my passions right this second is I'm trying to recruit 100 people to join Nauset Neighbors, because there are far fewer members of seniors in our town and Chatham, actually, that get these services than people in Orleans and Eastham. So I'm trying to turn that around.
Fantastic.
It's fun.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Jeff Handler. I am a true 4th-generation family of this town. I graduated Harwich High School in 1986. I live over here on Moss Hill Road, next to one of our selectmen, Mr. Mike McCaskill. I've been in the healthcare fitness business now for about 34 years. Like you, I think, David, I've chosen to spend my entire adult career as a parent. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, so I have a first grader and a little guy in preschool. And I think you might remember me from my loss from my run for selectman, which still hurts, and I'd like to bring that up publicly. I'm thrilled to be here. I think just going around the table, this is going to be a fantastic opportunity. And I think the care factor for our town sitting at this table is sensational. And I'm just thrilled to be here.
Hi, Barbara Nickerson. I've been here full time for 5 years now, but obviously with the name like Nickerson, my husband's family has been here for 300 plus years. Last couple of years, we finished the restoration on the 1796 family house on Route 28.
Nice.
Right now, I'm also a naturalist at the Museum, Cape Cod Museum of Natural History. I've taken some of your first graders and second graders out on field walks and mudflat media and stuff. In a previous life, I was the head of the environmental science group for the oldest engineering firm in the state of Texas, and did a lot of urban planning, environmental science, environmental planning, as well as water resource planning, which seems very appropriate right now. So
Yep.
I would agree.
look forward to working on this.
Margot, that leaves you next.
Okay, I'm Margot and I live on Union Road. And I moved to Harwich in 1996. I did in Harwich ever since. And I worked in Chatham as the director of planning for 4 years. And then when the Cape Cod Commission was created, I was hired to be the chief planner at the Cape Cod Commission. And then about 8 years later, became the executive director there and served in that role until 2007. I also worked after that as a consultant on the Herring River Restoration Project up in Cape Cod National Seashore in Lcp. And I am retired now, but serve on the Real Estate and Open Space Committee in town and on the board of the Association to Serve Cape Cod.
Thank you.
I guess somebody else said that.
One other person or?
I believe that's a reporter from the Cape Cod Chronicle.
Okay, both of those, I think. Okay.
So, and again, just for your purposes, the 11th member of this committee is Ed McManus, former selectman, and we certainly do expect him to be available at future meetings. I suspect that Ed and his crew are working feverishly to put the final touches on the Cranberry Festival, which is coming up this weekend. That's one of Ed's many labors of love. So, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem and committee members, if it would help you folks, what's going around the table now. And Margot, for your benefit, what I've handed out is a screenshot of the planning department, of the planning board's website. At present, anything related to local comprehensive plan, LCP, and the LPC, local planning committee, is housed there presently. So I'll talk about that in a moment. Margot, if you were able to locate that on the town's website, it's under boards and committees, under planning board. And then you'll see on the bar on the left-hand side, upper left-hand corner, it says local comprehensive plan. And so if you're able to find that, but that's something that I wanted to make you all aware of. The best thing that I can offer for you folks as town administrator on next steps is to familiarize yourself with that page. And you can see that there are some significant documents that are there. Specifically, the original master plan of the town that was developed in 1967. And then starting in the 90s, the town's local comprehensive plan. So you can see we have 93, 2000, 2011. So at the risk of telling stuff that you folks may already know, I just want to put it out there. The local comprehensive plan is something that Massachusetts municipalities do, and we try to do them on a decennial basis. So we tried, but we're a little bit off kilter, but that's okay because there was only 7 years between the 93 version and 2000. So that's the document that you folks are going to end up producing on behalf of the town and through the town, is our 2000, let's call it 23 for right now, local comprehensive plan, and that's what brings you here today. That piece of paper was handed out because that's your best way to see the most recent plan and former iterations of that. So I would encourage you to check that page out on the town's website. And then as you move forward and we have some funds available, we can certainly create more resources for you folks. Sure, Peter, go ahead.
Is the LCP required by the Commonwealth? I have read some things over the last couple of months and years that you have to refer to an LCP to make certain decisions, right? Is that, or that the town makes decisions guided by the LCP?
I'm gonna pretend to start answering, and I'm looking in the direction of David Spitz and Margot Fenn, and others here, meaning there are folks that can speak far better to this than I can. However, you're here because the town of Harwich requires that we have a local comprehensive plan.
Every day.
And the town commits to that and tries to commit to that on a decennial level. And as town administrator, I understand that that document is critical. It is, some of the most important statements the town can make about its future over the next 10 years. And I know Cape Cod Commission, Barnstable County, and some other groups rely upon that information. So that's my quick response. I defer to anyone else that can offer far more than that.
The town's not going to fall apart if there's no update to the comprehensive plan, but it's a very good guideline. And it's something that the town is doing well to try to get going again.
Thank you.
So then I'm going to go back to the advertisement that brought you folks here. And that's because I am here as town clerk, first to make sure that you folks are supported to get to get started with your organization and next steps. But also, given my role in town as town administrator, the Board of Selectmen would expect that I'm tied to you folks as well. But again, I want to emphasize I am not a member of this public body, nor would I be voting on anything that you folks do. But I am first among people that are very keenly interested to see what you end up providing for our town. So what the board was looking for that caused you folks to come before us is they're looking for folks that that may have direct relevant land use experience like engineering, planning, law, or etc. However, there is no requirement of those skills to be here. Rather, you are all residents of the town of Harwich. You all have great and varied backgrounds. And so the Board of Selectmen is relying upon you to shepherd the process. Now, for me, the process is going to start with a meeting like this, and then your next meeting is probably going to progress to the Griffin Room, which was where the Board of Selectmen meet regularly, so that the 11 of you can spread out and you have a better opportunity to be seen by the cameras for Channel 18, as well as support your fellow members who may want to dial in through GoToMeeting. But after that, and as we get into the process of hiring your consultant, you'll probably want to go start getting into community forums. And that is any number of opportunities working through the Board of Selectmen and administration to advertise, but to start reaching out to the community for input on certain topics. Now, I say that with a caveat. The town is going to have a special town meeting on Tuesday, October 18th, and I would hope at that point, prevailing upon the moderator, that whomever is deemed to be the chair might want to give a quick report to town meeting, because we got the fish in the barrel, so we may as well take the opportunity. So as you get underway, you're going to, like I say, work on the consultancy that's going to help you in the framework and the development of the plan. And then beyond that, identifying opportunities for public input. And every step of the way, you folks would be the ones to make actions by vote and incorporate the things that you want to incorporate with an eye towards producing the town's next local comprehensive plan.
Quick question on the 18th. Do we have the flexibility to ask the town to react or to participate? Does it have to be a readout, or can we use that as a forum to solicit input?
Absolutely not. Stay away from my special town meeting. No, the reality is there's no article that's related to this committee or the plan, but rather, since we're assembled, it's a great opportunity to say, we're here and we're going to start the process.
All right, here's our plan.
Yep. You may, however, impact upon annual town meeting, 230 days from today, which is the first Monday in May. So, as you're going through that, it may be then. But no, the special town meeting is an opportunity just to say that we finally, through the board, have got you assembled and you're starting your work.
What's the time frame for completion of this?
David, is it correct to say that generally speaking, it's 18 to 24 months, more or less?
Sure. There is no real time frame.
I didn't know if the town had a time frame that they were looking at.
We are thrilled that you folks are meeting tonight and have gotten started.
Can I ask him, sorry, are you,
Yeah.
okay, but another question. Do the selectmen or the select board or the town meeting adopt the plan? Is there a move or a vote to make this the official?
So there would be an adoption of it, but David, I defer to you because I have familiarity off Cape.
Planning board adopts, or
Okay.
the planning board approves. The Board of Selectmen has to weigh in some fashion. I forget whether there's a formal approval or not.
Okay.
And then town meeting has to approve.
And we'll
It's not-
check this. I'm
it's
just
not
getting.
Binding, it's
It's an
an advisory document.
But if the town's seeking grants,
Yeah.
you really have to have stuff in the town plan that supports what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. administrators and managers hear often that it's a planning tool that we can rely upon.
Thank you.
Does that cover the purpose of the committee?
If you folks tell me it does. So then next steps would be you want to organize. But in addition to that, what I would recommend is you want to find out amongst the 10 of you what you think your best meeting nights would be and some tentative schedule. And I say that because this evening there was a meeting in the Griffin Room at 4 o'clock. There's a meeting in the Griffin Room at 6 o'clock. So once you come up with dates, certainly let me know, and my administrative staff will work on trying to get an appropriate room. Again, for me, I think for your purposes, you definitely want to start your next meetings in the Griffin Room because you have more space, you have more opportunity for the public to attend, and you have a better angle of what we're dealing with now on remote. So those would be next steps of when do you want to meet, how often do you want to meet in the short term, and then I'll go back to it again, and who's going to be the chair, vice chair, and clerk.
Mm-hmm. Is using the community center a possibility, or that closes and doesn't have the equipment?
No, it's more the equipment. So the
Mhm.
community center is available. Generally, we use the multi-purpose room for bigger events. For any of you that are tied to other boards, that's where we did our open meeting law training.
Right.
They have some smaller rooms, but generally, if you want to get televised and an audience, it's best to try and start here at Town Hall and then go from there.
Okay, but they are available in the evening.
Absolutely. And we have library space at 204 Sisson Road, as Bernadette will tell me, the 204 in the library. The taping, however, would have to be coordinated with Channel 18. That would not then be a live stream. I don't believe that tonight's a live stream either, though, but we'll look into that.
I was under the impression they all had to be live streamed and that's the direction you were going in, although.
So we're certainly going in that direction.
All right,
Yep.
but, so as of right now, that's not necessary. Jamie had said due to staff and equipment limitations, I think last winter to me, regarding the cultural council that.
So I'm going to defer to
everyone
the
would come here
Channel 18
or
station manager on that one then.
community center.
Yep.
Okay, and just one other question. Sorry. Have we all done the training for open meetings and all of that?
So that's an excellent question that I would want to turn back to your chair at some point, because the chair would want to make sure that has everyone been sworn by our town clerk?
Right, that's the other issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Margot, have you been sworn in?
Yes.
Okay. Barbara, did you say you have not? And
I'm not, I filled out the form, but I did not attend the meeting. I was not able.
so what we might want to do is have you folks take a quick break to go down and see if the clerk's in the office, because you cannot take any votes until you're sworn.
You think
So-
Emily's still here?
There might be.
Yes, or may?
It's super quick. It's really-
Yeah, I know.
Yes, yep. Just watch yourself here.
Just high five Emily and then
She's
come
right
back up.
downstairs. Yeah.
I did the conflict of interest course, but is there any other courses that also would?
The open meeting course, yeah.
Is a taught course.
It's an online. You just go through, answer a bunch of questions.
It's in the open meeting one as well?
No, the state ethics is the online,
That's
State
the one I
ethics
had
is
that.
on.
correct.
Yep.
And open meeting law is materials that were provided.
It was a
The
lawyer.
state does have some, I was looking, the state had seminars twice a month on open
Hmm.
meeting law.
Yes, we've done them as well. The state does them, but the output I think that Brian's talking about is you all want to have that handy for sure.
Yeah.
Do you need to
Um,
collect them? I sent one to Emily. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
as
That-
long as
that's
Emily
exactly
has
what
it.
you want to do.
I,
Yep.
Yeah. I thought you had to fill that out for Emily to swear you in, but maybe.
So I would generally say that
That's what we're about.
you're still in meeting, meaning the cameras and microphones and everything are still going, so nothing hot. And when your colleagues return, you can get into substantive actions. In the meantime, any other questions or comments for anything that I might be able to help with?
Can I still ask a question on the approach to what we're doing, or do I have to wait for everybody?
She's not there.
All right.
You have to wait for everybody.
Yep. And so
I guess.
So you have two members present that are not sworn and therefore could not vote. They could, however, be tagged to be clerks, vice chairs, and chairs.
And does that mess up a quorum? The numbers?
Not right now. Nope, because you committee of 11, your quorum is 7,
Great.
and you've got 10 members here, minus 2, 8.
We're good.
And they're allowed to participate in the discussion.
Correct.
They just can't run out.
Yep. They are not yet recognized as full-fledged members of the committee unless and until they're sworn by the clerk.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I cannot possibly take on full-time clerk or chair
We'll-
at this point.
We'll get to that.
I'm
I'll
sorry.
get to that.
But I'm happy to chair.
Duly noted.
Yes. I think my first question is going to be who cannot in any way do this, and then we can say who's
I
left.
think, my question is, I'm sure we're gonna get into it as we start pouring through this, and I've looked at some of the past comprehensive plans, but it's the scope of the plan. Is that what shapes the scope, is the past plans, or is this something that we're going to decide as a team?
there is-
What's the leading practice?
There is, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts specifies what's part of a comprehensive plan. And I think Margot probably knows this as well as anyone here. It's the physical being of the town. It's not everything. It's anything related to the physical layout, development, conservation of the town. So the example I was thinking of, what are things that might not be? I mean, there's some big issues in this town. Keeping the beaches pretty, dredging the harbors, worrying about the noise at Harwich Port. There's some big issues that are not really physical layout. But anything related to physical layout,
I mean,
They
those
do.
things
They
are,
do.
they affect the well-being.
Yeah, it's interesting. I seem to remember during the interview, and I listened to some of your interviews, which was really fun, that they did have some topics though that kept coming up: affordable housing, issues like aging issues around our population, children issues. So I got the sense that there was, that there was some interest in certain topics in addition to just land. I mean, but. No.
The Cape Cod Commissioner outlined a whole series of topics that should be covered in a local comprehensive plan, but it's not, it doesn't limit it to that, so other things could be added to it.
And the selectmen will not weigh in on this or give us their view of it?
They will. Again, the prime purpose of tonight is to give you folks the opportunity to assemble, to build your framework of how you're going to operate.
Mhm.
And then future meetings will be more in-depth conversations of the layout, the content, the time frame. I know the board will be looking, I'll be giving them an update at one of their future meetings before the 18th on this meeting and perhaps another one to let them know where the local planning committee is at. And I think at one point they might want to have the chair come before them for a preliminary meet and greet, so to speak. They may also want to do a joint meeting where they have you come in at one of their regular board meetings to reintroduce themselves and perhaps to give some guidance. To me, as town administrator, the key points are I need to get that director of planning and community development. We're already well positioned to move forward on the RFP for the consultant. Other than that, it's you folks getting set up, moving forward, and then start reaching out.
Joe, would you hire a consultant before having the staff planner?
I didn't want to have the local planning committee assembled without the planner or the consultant, but here we are. So what the board has emphasized, and I understand my directive, is to get the process moving. I know that the RFP process for a consultant could take longer than if somebody applies next month and is a good fit coming on board. So even if we start the RFP process, I still hope to have the planner on board first. But I don't know that the planner would be on board to help with the consultant. Correct.
Joe, does it have to be an RFP process if it's under a certain threshold for spend?
So it doesn't, but the town contemplates the value to be over 50,000.
Okay.
So that's why we're already immediately contemplating.
Okay.
Excellent question.
I'm just a big change order guy, so that's where I'm.
And I'm going to pick your brain after this meeting because you clearly know 30B as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we understand. We estimate the value of that contract to be well over 50,000. I want to say that the town may have set aside upwards of at least 100,000.
Yeah, I thought it was 150 to 200
That
range.
sounds about right. So that's why we're contemplating that process.
What's the role of the consultant in the process?
It's really to be your direct resource to aid you on how you go through it, how it looks, what you might want to do
Okay.
on next steps. It's a dedicated resource above and beyond the Director of Planning and Community Development.
Do you have a
So
list
you-
we're working from, or is it a free-for-all as far as when we send RFPs out? I mean, do we have a approved
Publicly advertised.
consultant list for that?
So we don't, the procurement process will go through administration, but I'll come back at one of your meetings to work with you folks on what you think the scope of service should be. And then we put it out on, I'm not going to get it right, not comms by, but the other plan. So we do it far and wide. I know that Margot, David, and I may know of other folks. And I know we could also rely upon input from the Cape Cod Commission to say that, look, we're getting into this, spread the word. But we do not have presently a list that we'd be looking to hit yet.
I know that there are a lot of very highly qualified planning firms out there. I also know this day and age, sometimes it's hard to get anybody to do anything.
Yeah,
that's
because
true.
People are so overbooked. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle. But if there are people who are willing to bid, I think there's plenty of qualifications out there.
Sounds good. I think an important step seems to be too, if we do go 3 or 4 months without a planning director, we would have no support, because I don't think you have extra support sitting around to
At present, we do
help
not,
us.
correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for noticing.
Right.
But that, so just to build on it though, that consultant can help us figure out what should go in the plan, right? But then also help us with the technical resources, graphically developing the actual document and how that
Okay.
piece is put together.
But the work of pulling the thought together is what we're all doing.
Content.
And do we lean on other departments within the town? Is there kind of a state of the union that we ought to be able to draw on that's got the latest demographics and, all the financials?
Yeah, and I would think that just like having community forums, we might want to have forums with people in education or people in housing or whatever. So you can imagine bringing them in to give us some ideas also.
I can see setting it up like it's a consulting engagement where we're just doing lots of due diligence to
Mm-hmm.
scratch the surface. And even interviewing the board of selectmen.
Okay. Other questions? Have we left anything out here?
Is there anything we didn't ask that we should have?
Oh, excellent question. No, I'm champing at the bit to hear who your organization is going to be, but
We should move
since
that
I've now been
direction.
asked a question,
Duck it again.
I love the way you just talked about it.
It's time.
Because from my perspective as a town administrator, I think that's a great way to approach it. You folks are fact finding, you folks are reaching out, you folks are collecting data. And so, yes, you rely upon the consultant, you look at it in a consultative way. You can certainly request through administration. We'll try to make anything happen for you folks where if you want to have a meeting with appropriate staff, if you want to pick the brains of the Board of Selectmen and anything and everything within that, we stand ready to serve and partner with you folks. I think that's a great approach, and I suspect that's why each and every one of you are now here.
So, Mr. Temporary Chair, would it be more efficient to find out who's interested or who definitely does
Yeah.
not want it?
Well, what I was going to suggest is to say who wants to be totally out of the consideration. But I guess you could do it the other way around too. It's a little less awkward almost for people to to not have to say I want to do it, as opposed to have some folks. And if we find out whether it's just 2 people who couldn't ever do it, or is it 7 people who could never do it, what the difference is.
Can I ask one question on that? I assume over 18 or 24 months, some people there'll be some attrition on this committee due to family circumstances or otherwise, right? And
Sure.
chairs will come and go, and we would just re-nominate and re-vote.
So aside from the attrition, generally speaking, the charter says that any board, committee, or commission, of which you would be one, you want to reorganize at your meeting after the start of the fiscal year. So this is your organization,
Yep.
and then at your first meeting in July of 2023, you would reorganize.
Gotcha.
So is there any reason to figure out how often we're gonna meet, et cetera, before we say whether or not we want to or not want to be one of the three folks, or?
That would make sense. I would think either Margot or David would have a sense of how these things work in terms of how often you need to meet.
If you meet more often in the beginning than you do in the middle, is there?
Yeah, that makes a difference on level of effort.
I really think what we need to do is organize, and then you serve at the pleasure of the chair if you have to, in terms of trying to figure out when we're going to meet.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you organize to the work too. I guess the work is still all middle administrative.
I mean, in terms of you have to have someone leading this,
True, I agree with that.
and we're kind of dancing around it.
So
And if you want, I'll make the statement that I'm already vice chair and chair of 2 other committees, and I'm not.
I have a feeling that's going to be true of a lot of people around the table, though. So I might not get you off.
Actually, I don't feel experienced enough to chair, but I'm certainly
I'd
an
be-
energetic participant.
Want to serve as the clerk?
You did say you
Very
retired.
nice, Joyce.
You did say that.
And you're right.
Yeah, I lost you short too.
I say that because I am to everybody.
Just-
No one's ever told you that?
I agree with that.
Maybe because you offered the explanation, right? I have a new business. I'm starting to. I happily volunteer to be vice chair. I could not chair or be the clerk. I don't feel I'd be effective. So, if there's a volunteering, I'd be happy to help in that regard and stand in for people. But I could not. I don't think I'd do a good enough job. Now, 6 months from now, different conversation. That's my point.
So I think I've heard about 4 of us try to beg off being chairs so far.
Well,
I mean,
anyone want to
I-
volunteer?
You know, I think you can share that. I mean, relying on your experience, you know, in terms of the town. I appreciate the deep sort of resources here, but sure, I can help organize as the chair if you want to be the vice chair.
I don't want to suggest I'd be that, but if you
No,
want to,
no,
let's start
no,
with the chair.
Anybody else can be involved too, you know.
Margaret,
Strongly.
Margot, do you have thoughts, or guys, do you have
Yeah.
thoughts?
well, it's funny if I look at it.
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing this, because people talk at the same time, I can't really hear.
Sorry. Joyce McIntyre offered to be chair, volunteered, I think, if no one had any objection.
But if someone
But-
else, Margot, if
yeah,
you would like to do it, if Jeff would like to do it.
I think-
anybody.
I think what we should do is get the folks, as I said, or maybe you said, the folks who have an interest in it, and then decide it. I'll say one thing in terms of just to get this conversation going, but it truly, from an experience point of view, David and Margot have a lot of experience in this, and Jeff, you know a lot about the town, so I would put you on this list too, since you are an urban planner, but you've taken yourself off. So if we think that a chair should have a lot of experience in planning, I mean, I think some of those folks do it. Sometimes it's good to have a chair who's not the expert. They just sort of, keep moving it around. But
I have a question, if I may. As far as a consultant goes, what's the time frame? That may have already been answered, and I apologize if it was, but when should we expect to have somebody here to help us with the scope and the framework and the foundation of what we're trying to create?
So I would imagine in your next meeting that you determine, that would be the first time that I sit down with you as a presenter and say, the town has funding available and we're looking to develop a scope of services. This is what we have as an example. What do you folks think? And then if we agree, we would immediately take the next steps to fill that. So generally speaking, we're now September. I would imagine that we could theoretically have a consultant on board before the end of the calendar year.
That's super helpful, because I think for all of us, no matter who the chair is and the vice chair, there'll be an awful lot of leaning on the expert. I've always believed let the expert do their work, and that would be the person that we would be leaning heavily on to direct the chair. So the point I'm making, and the overarching theme, is if you have an interest in being the chair, I don't want anybody to feel, and I don't feel, that the chair would be the one to handle absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I think there would be an awful lot of help from the consultant that we would bring on board to guide and and assist the chair in doing the chair's job.
Mhm.
And then underneath that, the committee would then be, as you well put, serving the chair.
No, I just meant you serve at the pleasure of the chair. In
Of
terms
course.
If someone's going to stand forward a chair is just who presides over and makes sure the meeting runs.
Exactly.
You know, I don't mean to say just, but I also, as you said, you put out an ad looking for people with certain kinds of background, but then you also said, and I certainly fall into that other category of someone who has history and culture and experience with the town. But my reason for begging off was because I already have these responsibilities on 2 other committees.
So- Maybe I could just put David and Margot on the spot and just say, would you be interested if we wanted to go
Let's start
there?
with Margot.
Margot, could you,
She heard that.
Yeah.
I said, I think if we have a volunteer who wants to do it, we should jump on that. I'd be happy to, to serve in a backup role as vice chair or just as, kind of an advisor about process and that sort of thing. David and I both have experience doing that. I do have a number of other things going on in my life at this point, so I wouldn't at this point want to offer myself as chair.
Very, very similar comments. I think I have a lot of resources I can help everybody out with. No, I don't want to be the chair.
I would be open to wherever you guys need me to serve. I'll do whatever you need.
That's unfair. You need to stay.
Hey, I'm a team guy.
There's a
I think what he's saying is he's not going to nominate himself, and he would not.
I type, just so everyone knows, I type like a Neanderthal, so that probably won't be the best, but I will take on whatever. Yeah, it just sends everything to the cloud for me and tells me what I owe people.
Jeff, how about you?
I'd be interested in chair, vice chair, absolutely not.
I think I had to sold that one.
The clerk. I just wanted to fill. But I absolute confidence, Joyce, in you stepping up and saying,
However we want to shake it
Right,
out, it's fine. It just
right.
didn't seem like anyone was jumping on it, so.
And Barbara?
I feel comfortable.
Well, I'd like to say this since I'm not already sworn in that I can't do any of the above.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Well, no, you
Oh, no,
could
you
be.
said-
Oh, serious? I'm sorry.
Okay.
When you were out of the room, Joe reminded everyone. Yeah. To be honest, since this is my first committee within Harwich, I don't think chair or vice chair. I mean, I can herd cats, but I really think with my background and everything, I'd be better off in the background, helping with the planning.
Joe, would you be willing to go over the clerk's role again? Advertising, those.
So the main function that we need a clerk to do is to make sure that there is a record of your votes and actions. That is to say, the person that's responsible for keeping track of what you've said, but more said that led to action, and then bring it back at your next meeting for minutes.
Right.
Because then you meet your obligation under the open meeting law. The chair is the one that develops the agenda. The clerk would be the one to try and get that posted through staff.
Thank you.
So we don't have the luxury of having staff listening to the tape and doing the minutes.
At present, you do not, correct. That's not to say that over time, we couldn't get you a recording secretary, but at present, well, let me back up. Whether a committee has the benefit of a recording secretary, you still need to have a clerk under our charter. And so that is the person that wants to make sure that the agenda was properly posted, the minutes were recorded and accepted.
Yeah, the clerk's job is not hard at all. Taking minutes, that's what takes the time.
Right, and they could rely upon the video afterwards, things like that. I also want to put out there that, as I've mentioned before, this is your leadership, so to speak. So your your chair is the presiding officer, the vice chair is the deputy presiding officer, and the clerk, in the absence of the chair and the vice chair, is the presiding officer. So those three people are in line to run the meeting. Because of, going back to the quorum question, you've got 11 members, and if those three were unable to meet, then you say, okay, it's the senior member. and that is determined by age, and I'm not getting into that tonight.
And just to clarify, though, your point, the threshold for adequate minutes is not, line by line.
Correct, it is not a
That
transcript.
sounds like a fairly
Right.
low-
Record what was done, not what was said.
Right,
I
and-
mean,
That sounds like a
within
doable
reason.
task.
Yes, that's.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
it's a simple matter of, actually, I send the agendas as the chair for the cultural council. It's a simple matter of, once you've made it up, you just send it to agenda at town hall and Caleb gets it.
And
posts it.
if I
Same
may,
with minutes.
to David's point, however, you do not have a board secretary, which is a position. We don't have resources yet for that.
So who among us is willing to be clerk?
You're the best.
She's the
That's a wonderful thing for you all. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, you heard that Barbara Nickerson was nominated
I heard that. Yep.
to be clerk. You would then want to ask if there were any other nominations for the position of clerk.
Any other nominations for the position of clerk?
You would then say, hearing none, all those in favor, again, in this instance, Peter and Barbara cannot vote. You would say, all those in favor of Barbara Nickerson as clerk, please say aye.
Hearing none. Everybody.
I apologize, sorry.
Second.
Not only second, you have a member who's working remotely, so you must, unfortunately, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, do a roll call vote of the committee.
Okay, we will do a roll call vote, and we'll start with Margot.
Did we get a second?
You need a
So Barbara offered her name. I believe I heard Jeff
I
and
would second that motion.
I heard, yeah, you have to make the motion one
I'm
quick.
sorry, I thought yes.
And then who seconded it? Everybody else did. Wonderful. Yep.
Sure.
Somebody taking
Okay.
notes?
Yep, I am.
So it's been moved and seconded, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. You would now do vote by roll
So
call.
Margot, you're first, and you said an aye, if I heard you correctly.
I said aye, yes.
I'm an I, Jeff Hamlin.
I'm an aye, Jim Nickman.
Garrett Curran, aye.
Mhm. I cannot, but I'm taking notes.
David Spitz, aye.
Bernadette Waystack, aye.
Joyce McIntyre.
Make sure that's legal.
Michelle, aye.
Okay. And Margot, I. So that's unanimous as I
Correct. Yep.
recorded. Great.
So unanimous and in parentheses, 7-0?
You know?
8-0.
no.
Thank you.
You know.
This is my third meeting tonight. So congratulations, everybody. You have a clerk.
All right.
Amazing.
Now you need a chair and a vice chair in any particular order.
So I think that, well, again, people can, I'm just here because of some rule, but so anybody can throw their, I don't have authority here. But anyway, I think that we should hear if others would do it. I think I've heard at least 2 would do it. 3, right? Who's the third?
Jeff.
Oh, you would do it. That's 3. So we have 3 people who would do it.
With the chair.
This is the chair now. Are there any others?
Are you, I guess?
What about yourself?
I mean, I'll tell you my sad story. No, is that I actually like to do these things that I've done them a lot in my career. I am spread thin on a couple of other projects locally, and I still have some things nationally that I get drawn into. I think I will probably have to do 1 out of every 4 meetings, 3 or 4 meetings if we do monthly remotely. So I might not really have quite the locality to do it.
Jim, can I jump on that just for the benefit of your committee?
Mhm.
Excellent point that he made where he indicated he would be remote for some meetings. The open meeting law requires that when you have a hybrid meeting like this, the town of Harwich's procedures for remote participation require that the chair be physically present in your meeting room. So that's something to bear in mind as you're talking about potentially serving as chair or vice
The
chair.
vice chair can't take the place of the chair for a meeting.
No, they would. The chair wouldn't be the chair. So that you'd need to know that your chair and vice chair,
The vice-
if your chair is remote, they're no longer the chair for that meeting.
Okay, that's not.
They
All
still
the
have-
fun laws that are out there.
But they still have the import of leadership and everything. It's
Correct,
Just
yep.
the
But I think Jim
presiding over.
offers a
Yep.
great, point of the
It's hugely helpful.
remote access. So
Is it the same if it's an all meeting? Right.
if we were to go to all remote for whatever reason, does not apply.
No, just
Thank you. No,
Interesting. Great. So if there are at least three, right? Maybe it's least awkward for us to just do it with a piece of paper, so you're not,
So unfortunately, under the Massachusetts open meeting law, you cannot do blind voting.
I see you can't do it.
So first there needs to be a motion to nominate somebody and a second. And then you could nominate and a second another person and then do a vote on all three. But unfortunately, everything you're doing is on camera and not in secret ballot.
This will take a little bit of time to understand as we go along. That's good. Okay, so
Yeah, I'm fun at parties, so.
so
and I can neither vote nor make the nominate.
Correct. You can be nominated and elected.
okay.
I want to keep emphasizing that.
So
As could a member who is not present.
That's not fair.
okay, so the way I have it written down here, so we have Joyce as a possibility, we have Garrett who's a possibility, and we have Jeff who's a possibility. So we have three possibilities.
For either role, it seems.
Right, and you guys would all do either role.
And you were also interested in vice.
Listen, there's enough there. I'm not. Right now, I prefer
I'd
not.
be interested in the vice chair.
Cool.
You'd be in some vice, but not okay. So we have four possibilities.
Yeah,
No, we're not. So I guess I'm not sure exactly what. I guess the
I guess you
option is.
motion-
Oh, we need a motion to
Motion and
see if-
second to nominate someone.
Okay. So I'd like to ask for a motion to nominate Jeff. I'm going to go through all three, right?
I nominate Jeff.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, are we?
As
doing
what?
this
As
specifically
chair?
for-
As we're doing
as
chair
chair.
right now. Yeah,
Okay,
chair.
I'll second that.
So okay. So we have one nomination.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to nominate Joyce.
Right.
Can I nominate Joyce or have I already used my nomination?
Nope, you can keep going.
Nominate Joyce.
I'll second.
I also nominate Joyce.
Okay. So we have a first and a second on that. We're
I'll
going to
nominate Garrett.
I'll second that.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we have three nominations, and we have to decide on which of those.
So,
And we
Mr.
have to do that in
Chairman,
a public.
what you would do is you would do a roll call vote. Procedure dictates that you would go in the order of nominations. So you will do a roll call asking those in favor of Jeff Handler as chair. And then you'll record the amount of votes for Mr. Handler and proceed
And if you don't
throughout
like
the roll.
this nice and slow for me,
So you can only vote once.
And pronounce the names.
Okay, so we're starting with Jeff, and we're going to go around the room and each say, that they're putting a vote in for Jeff or not. Margot?
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Are all three of our people comfortable to be locally available, whether we meet monthly or some other? And I'm going to say for a couple of years.
I work, my situation as I work remote, I go into Boston on Mondays, but my schedule is very flexible.
That was easy.
There are no emergency surgeries?
There are, but not when I'm here. So there's lots of
Okay, so we'll go around the room. Margot, you're to my left and this seemed to be the first one there. So you need to go first on saying yes, no to Jeff, although that sounds very stark.
It's fine with me.
Okay, Margot.
I'm having trouble with this because I don't really know the candidate. So I don't want to say no to anybody, but I also I don't know who's the best person, so I don't want to be the first person to vote.
Should we just go around the room and just say who we name? Or
It's
It
a
has to be
procedural
it has to
question.
be
So-
a roll call vote.
It has to be roll call, but that would be acceptable, generally speaking. You have three nominated candidates. You could go identify yourself by name and the candidate that you're voting for.
can I ask a question, or maybe we could also, I think, one of you could withdraw your name, right? Couldn't they withdraw? And then
Correct.
would be with two, and then we have a much easier,
I'll withdraw.
an easier.
well, I don't know
Then
why I
it-
did that. Then.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just suggesting it. I'm not.
Yeah.
There was an action.
I'm not. I didn't mean. I
I
didn't.
already did.
Because
We're good. No, I think we just get it moving. Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. At the end of the day, it gets reconvened next year anyway.
Right.
So
And the,
this is a temporary thing.
If I could just say this for the benefit of the committee, this is your most difficult meeting. You will never organize again. You will reorganize, but you will already have names at that point in time.
Because we made it difficult for ourselves by putting 3 people up.
We would have just gone around the room and
In our first meeting, when we're just getting
We're
to
just-
know one another, it made it kind of awkward to have
Still-
people
still-
voting for people.
So we're gonna stumble through this.
All
Yes,
right,
yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I-
So,
I wanna go.
So
for
it's
Jared.
understood.
So Margot has refused to go first. Can we go the other direction?
Sure, absolutely. You can go in any
Fine.
direction you like, Mr. Chairman
I
Pro
know
Tem.
Brian has confidence to give an answer here.
Okay, Brian Shell votes Joyce.
Joyce McIntyre votes Jeff.
Sorry.
Bernadette Waystack votes Joyce.
I'm sorry to only cast one vote, and I'm gonna vote for Joyce.
I will vote for Jeff, Garrett Kern.
I'm going to vote for Joyce. Jim Nickman.
And I vote for Joyce.
Amazing.
Margot?
Margot could not. Oh, Margot could.
Margot.
Yes, Margot.
So as you might want to benefit from where we're at.
Yep, forgive me. So we have 5 votes for Joyce, and both Garrett and Joyce voted for Jeff. So we have 5 votes for Joyce and 2 votes for Jeff to be chair. And Margot, you're the Yep.
I know it's Joyce.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent.
I'd like to offer a parliamentary thing that, if you'll bear with me,
Please.
that if a member makes a motion to name Joyce chair by unanimous acclamation, that cleans up the records going forward.
Oh, yeah.
I nominate Joyce by unanimous acclamation.
Correct.
Second.
Oh,
And we heard Jeff second.
We don't have to. Do we have to go around?
All in favor?
So unless there's objection, it's understood that the committee has voted unanimous consent and acclamation that Joyce is your chair.
Right. Okay, we're done that. Now, vice chair.
Right.
So we have 2 candidates for vice chair, Jeff and
Oh, I put myself up.
Brian. 3
Garrett
candidates,
withdrew.
and Garrett
Garrett withdrew.
from the vice chair too.
In both, all of them. You see, we have volunteers, we're good. Don't want to mess this thing up.
So then you had motions and seconds for Brian Sheld and Jeff Handler, correct?
Yes.
It's all a facade.
Okay. Why don't we begin this one with Joyce? So we don't have to start with.
Yes, Joyce McIntyre vote for Jeff.
Bernadette Waystack vote for Jeff.
I vote for Jeff. David Spitz.
Garrett, because I'm out.
Garrett Kern vote for Jeff.
Jim Nick will vote for Brian.
Jeff Handler will vote for Jeff.
Margot?
I'll vote for Jeff.
And so where there's a plurality, again, someone would make a motion for unanimous consent on Jeff Handler as vice chair.
I move unanimous consent for Jeff Handler as vice chair.
Are there any objections? Okay, we're done.
Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Madam Clerk.
Great job, Jim.
You're not done yet, but that's a phenomenal
Can I
thing.
ask
So,
you a question though, just practical
Sure,
for
absolutely.
this? So I'm happy. I will obviously type these up.
and I will help you.
Okay.
Yep. Before you proceed next steps, so you would want to thank your Chairman Pro Tem, Jim Nickman, for his long and studious service.
Let the record show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we turn and recognize your chair, Dr. McIntyre. The meeting's now yours to continue on. And then last but not least, you will then eventually call for a motion to adjourn and do a roll call. However,
Okay,
you do want to consider your next steps.
yes.
And if nothing else, you may want to at least set one more meeting.
So can I say my farewell remarks? Farewell remarks is I now officially will take credit for every good thing that this organization does.
It was working really well.
Okay.
Okay. Can we have a bit of discussion, and I would appreciate guidance on the parliamentary component of it. Can we have a bit of discussion about, toss a couple things out there. Frequency for folks, how they'd like to kind of decide on meeting times, if we, what's the sense of the gist? I have some thoughts, but we'll open it up to discussion.
I was wondering if the fact that this many of us made it Tuesday at 5, is that a good time, or was that a stretch to get there?
Are doodles helpful? Is it like something recurring?
I know for me, it's going to help if it's a consistent day and time.
I agree.
And I didn't know if,
Tuesdays, yeah, Tuesday's a good day for me because I have something else on Wednesday, so I'm going to always be there.
Can I ask Joe, what other boards meet on Tuesdays? Concom?
Planning board, for sure, because they're meeting right now.
Usually a little later,
Uh,
right?
Excuse me, golf committee, but usually earlier.
Yeah.
So you can determine Tuesdays. We could evaluate, we being the administrative staff, evaluate opposite weeks if that's necessary. And again, equally important is when you want your meetings to occur. Now, to that end, you may contemplate a morning meeting if you're going to meet with staff, an afternoon meeting if you're going to meet with some other committee maybe, or an evening meeting. So for me, the real key to derive from this discussion right now is when do you all think you can get together again soon for your next meeting to get into more of that discussion?
So we said we liked Tuesdays. We kind of like Tuesdays at 5.
Mhm.
If everyone has their
And I guess the big question is the planning person will have to be at the planning meeting also, so we have to make sure we're a different hour at least.
Let me strike that. You all can decide that at future meetings for sure. Yeah.
So is,
Yep.
is 3 weeks too soon? October 4th.
it's okay by me.
Okay by me.
We do remote, right?
Yep.
I'm out of town.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, that going forward, if we can kind of leverage all our resources, we can, if we agree, can certain meetings be all remote versus in person?
So the answer right now is the Board of Selectmen does not make arrangements for fully remote meetings. And the only caution I would offer is, given the very specific nature of this, you want to be able to have the public assemble as much as you can in person.
Okay, so the bias is the in-person meetings.
Correct.
The
Yep, I got you,
the
absolutely.
motivation.
Yep,
Yeah. The motivation is in person.
Will this workload break out into where we're having smaller groups on subtopics? Or is this all of us meet once a month or every 3 weeks? on the full-
Potentially, I think, right, and then we'll probably need some guidance in terms of the meeting live or subcommittee.
So given the size of this committee, you could envision subcommittees.
Right.
Just want to emphasize that any subcommittee of this is still a public body. So you still have all the obligations. You may also want to contemplate liaisons to different groups, so to speak, and then come back to your board meeting. But whenever you folks meet proper, yeah, you're doing it as you've done it here.
I would think until we really get moving that we all want to be together.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I'm
right.
just- I'm thinking
Just
that.
thinking of, 24
And-
months, leveraging all our resources.
And for what it's worth, again, for me, your next meeting, Madam Chair, would have on the topic of the consultancy search and steps on that. And then you can sort of derive the rest of the meetings for the rest of the year, calendar year, the next few months based on that. You may not have a lot of meetings between now and your consultant coming on board versus the types of meetings you have after your consultancy. Did that make sense?
So there.
So, can I just intervene for a moment? I'm gonna have to get off, the call, but, I just wanted to weigh in and say that 5 o'clock on Tuesdays works for me. And, meeting, if we plan to meet, say, once a month, if we need to meet more frequently, we could, but, it would be good if we could just have for the regular meeting days, so people can schedule it out,
Sure. Right on. Live by the calendar. So yes, live and die by it. So yes, agreed.
If I may. Before you get off, Margot, this is David Spitz. You mentioned a resource, a document identifying what is commonly in a local comprehensive plan. Would that be a good thing to get to committee members for next meeting?
Yeah, and I'm a little rusty on it, but when I get back to the case, which is gonna be later this week, I can talk to some folks at the commission about that.
And outside of the meeting, I'd be glad to touch base with you just on pulling some of that together.
And
That would be great.
for,
Great.
for what it's worth, for the benefit of the committee, now that you've organized, now that you're proper, now that you may have your next meeting, I'll be reaching out to Cape Cod Commission staff as well to let them know that the town of Harwich has now embarked on this. So it may be that you might have a presenter or two at your next scheduled
Oh,
meeting.
that's a nice idea.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And I think obviously reading in between in terms of the documents available to us in terms of guidance and standards would be helpful.
So if I could, for what it's worth, as the town administrator, I will come before you many times, more often than not, sitting in the audience, listening to your discussions. I don't normally do what I've done this evening, and I don't like to. So I look forward to moving into the background, but also at the forefront of supporting you folks. So as you develop your content, let me know if there's anything you think I can do to get you folks the resources you need.
So
For
appreciate
subject matter
the
experts.
help launching.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Would it be appropriate now to get contact information
That's a great.
to somebody, so emails
Have we
and
established the meeting yet?
Yeah, so time. Okay, so.
And then any of that could be done offline.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so I can propose the next time, right? So Tuesday, October 4th, 5:00.
In frequency,
So it sounds like from our planner's guidance or our administrator's guidance that we're going to be, next topic is going to be the consultant. And that once they're on board, that will kind of start to set our frequency. But I would say, we'll think about once a month.
So how soon does all this have to go to whoever here to post and all that kind of stuff?
Excellent question. I was going to tell you that my next steps tomorrow to work, well, first of all, to inform the Board of Selectmen of your actions this evening. Let staff know about your next meeting. And one of the things we'll do is make sure we have availability for Griffin Room. If we don't, we will find a suitable meeting space to meet your obligations to be online and to be better than this room. I hope for all of you that this is the last time you meet in this room.
So
we'll take next steps on that tomorrow morning.
10-4 at 5.
And we would hope to have you in the Griffin Room, which is the big room adjacent.
Because does this have to be posted like in the newspaper and everything else, or how does this?
We both posted.
Yep. The answer is no, but many people will help you with that process.
I was gonna say, I had to do it before, I didn't want to
Well,
do
the
it for
reason
this
I'm asking
group.
is I usually get, because I'm gone the week before as well as that week of the 4th.
Is it possible for me to stand in for her and just do it?
No, I'll
You can do
learn
it
how to
from-
do it and everything.
You're
I'm just-
comfortable, no, I just mean you're comfortable doing it if you're remote. It's the sound.
figure it
is
It's not hard, it's
It's
easy.
called punting.
It's, it's a matter of just typing it up and
I
sending it to them.
assume it's within the body, the work of the committee to potentially set our schedule, like say 6 months going forward and agree on dates.
Correct.
We can do that.
You are fully constituted. 2 members need to be sworn.
Yep.
But you're fully constituted. You have an organization. You have a next meeting. You have wide latitude as to how you operate going forward.
Let me ask this question of people that have done it before. How often do these groups meet? What is a good productive schedule? Is it monthly or is
I
it
think,
more
I think
frequent?
you'll, I think you'll burn out at every 2 weeks.
Yeah, me too.
3 weeks is possible. A month is what often tends to be the default position.
And if it's
What's
a,
the homework in between?
Or even a-
that's where you have
even-
subgroups in between, or
Or even a meeting if you need it in between, but not every month.
And then keep in mind that you might double up March, May, and June and not meet but once in July or August. Or December, depending on the workload.
yeah, I guess it depends how good the consultant is too to organize things.
But if you figure monthly plus as needed, that might be a good guide.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's fair.
Would the committee find it helpful offline if we sort of pencil in some dates for like the 6 months going forward?
You can always change them, so
Yes.
getting
We
them
can always
locked in.
cancel it
Yeah.
like if December is
Yeah.
a slow month.
First Tuesday?
First
The
Tuesday.
first
Yeah.
Tuesday helps you in November and December, because you're not
Yeah.
helping up on the holidays.
So I'll confirm that then to email. And
Just-
to email the committee, do we go through Ellen Powell or do we form our own?
So no, you want to be careful with all that.
Yes,
So,
that's what I'm asking.
where the question came up about sharing content contact information. I would always recommend you do that offline.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be getting all sorts of emails. And then we, the town, will collect from you relevant information and help with. You can certainly communicate to your committee. What we recommend is blind copy, and just that everybody knows through your open meeting law awareness that you do not want to get into deliberations or discussions, however benign you may think they are. They tend to be considered serial deliberation, which is a no-no. So, yeah, we have in the administration department contact information because we got you all here. And we can also share that for all of your benefit, but you can certainly talk to one another.
So just Joyce,
Just clarify, oh, go ahead.
I just, I don't know if it matters to you, but the second Tuesday in the month is much better for me.
Okay,
If
let's
that's
look,
possible.
let's look, let's
Okay.
dig deep in, it's going to be 6:30
That
now.
would
We've
be
done work
election
tonight.
day in November.
We've done work, but.
You can always change it, but I'm just saying.
Second Tuesday in October is the day after a holiday, so you're competing with the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah,
second
and
Tuesday in
the
November.
First is better. Well,
Yep.
let's still look.
Oh,
Second
you're not doing first,
It's
but
on
that's
there.
And Madam Chair, you mentioned Doodle. You should not be doing those, but we can do those on your behalf. So if you come up with dates, we can certainly try that again for you folks. Staff can do those things because we're not part of your deliberations, and therefore we're not violating anything.
Who would be our contact?
So you're looking at them to start, and then I will delegate.
Lovely and helpful. Okay.
Well, it underscores the fact, if I may, the importance of this committee. And I can tell you personally and professionally, I'm thrilled that we have you folks assembled, because this is something that I was talking to the board about as early as 2020. And so it is great to have you folks constituted and ready to start working. And I am thrilled to be able to do an RFP to get you a consultant and to support you folks going forward. This is a great document that you folks can create, and one that will impact upon our town for at least a decade to come. So thank you all for that for sure.
Thank you for your support. Is there any other new business?
Yes, question. An open meeting law, you said there are going to be some seminars coming up. Who will?
So the town clerk's office is aware generally of open meeting law seminars that come through the state government. KP Law, the town's attorney, has materials online. And if it's helpful for this committee, I'd be more than happy to set up a special event for you folks to give you guidance on that. So one of the things we could do is have the town attorney come and give you folks guidance on that if you'd like.
If we did that a half an hour before the next meeting, I'd be in favor of that. Because the other thing that strikes me, and I know you said to be careful of open meeting law and subgroups, but aren't we in the spirit of gathering input?
Yeah.
So do we?
It's all in
Yeah,
how it's done.
It's
Yeah, but
right.
I think we want to be active.
I think it's a great point. I think potentially getting all on one, what is the standard that we have to meet as a committee as we start this?
Especially when we're not out driving decisions for a while, we're gathering for a long time.
One other suggestion, you have two where you,
Yeah, what was the second?
No, that was it. I asked him.
one for
Yes.
Chair, and,
Yes.
our Vice Chair, and our clerk. Just, we might want to do a refresher on Robert's Rules of Order, right? Just so that the
Yeah.
clerk gets everything documented, right?
May I respond to that?
Or not.
Please.
Hopefully, this is the most you have to deal with
Okay,
Robert's Rules of Order. Speaking as a reformed and registered parliamentarian, what you want to take from that is all conversation goes through the chair. The best way to do it is you either have an agenda item that you say, Madam Chair, I'd like to talk about this, or perhaps more importantly, you just put out discussion and it's a round robin. Otherwise, you would say, I'd like to make a motion. Somebody seconds it, and then the Madam Chair says, discussion to the motion. And that's
Yeah,
it.
That was
And then
the step.
majority
The
prevails.
Discussion happens after a second.
Yep.
That always threw me.
Yep. Majority prevails, and keep
The
notes.
chair can close those types of things. They can close discussion.
Yep.
Those you present.
Madam Chair, what I would offer is what I said as a parliamentarian. You are first among equals. That means you are first with the burdens.
Yes, here we go. It's gonna be great.
That means you can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yes. We have a motion. We have a
I
second.
move that we adjourn.
You move quick.
Everybody
All
in
those in
favor?
favor, yeah.
Yes.
Aye.
Unanimous to close. All dropped up, no